On my wedding day, my son and daughter-in-law mocked my new husband right in front of 400 guests. They said he wasn't a stepfather. They called him trash. My daughter-in-law's entire family roared with laughter while I felt the world collapsing beneath my feet. I stood up, shaking with fury, and threw every single one of them out of the reception. It was then that my husband looked at me with a profound calm I had never seen before and said something that changed my life forever. "Honey, I'm a billionaire, but let me tell you how I got to this moment, because what happened next was something none of them could have ever imagined." Welcome to my channel. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Now let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. It all started 3 hours earlier when I, Eleanor, or Ellie, as my friends call me, at 61 years old, stood in the most magnificent event space I had ever seen. 400 guests filled every seat upholstered in ivory velvet. The tables shimmered with cream silk linens and towering centerpieces of white and gold flowers that looked like they were pulled straight out of a magazine. I had hired the best musicians, the top caterer, all paid for with my life savings. I wanted this day to be flawless, because after 15 years of widowhood, of loneliness, of nights spent crying in silence, I had finally found love again. Elias, or Eli Vance, stood beside me at the altar in his modest but immaculate gray suit. His silver hair was neatly combed, his hands calloused from years of honest work. He wasn't rich. He didn't drive a luxury car and lived in a small apartment in a simple neighborhood. But when he looked at me, I felt like the most valuable woman in the universe. That was the only thing that mattered. Then I heard the first loud, mocking, venomous laugh. It came from the third row, exactly where my son, Darius, was seated next to his wife, Tasha. Darius was 38 years old, wearing an Italian suit that cost more than $3,000 and a Rolex watch on his wrist. He had always made it clear to me that money was the most important thing in life. Tasha was worse. That 35-year-old woman in her overly tight blood-red dress with long black painted nails and a superior attitude had made my life hell since the day she married my son. She came from a family that considered themselves upper crust, though we all knew her father had made his fortune through shady business dealings. "Look at that," I heard Tasha whisper to her mother, loud enough for me to hear. "The old woman is marrying a pauper." Her mother, Brenda Jenkins, a woman with too many fake gold necklaces clanging around her neck, laughed, covering her mouth with her hand. "Poor Ellie. At her age, she can't catch anything better." I felt my cheeks burn, but I kept my gaze fixed on the minister. Eli gently squeezed my hand as if to say, "It'll be all right." But things were just getting started. The officiant continued the ceremony, speaking about love, respect, and the sacred union of marriage. I tried to concentrate on his words, on the moment I had dreamed of for months, but the stifled laughter and cruel comments kept coming from my own family's section. "Did you see his shoes?" one of Tasha's cousins whispered. "They look like they were bought at a thrift store." "And that suit?" another added. "My gardener dress is better." The entire row of the Jenkins family chuckled under their breath. They were like vultures waiting for the perfect moment to attack. I felt my heart breaking into pieces, but Eli remained serene, dignified, as if none of it affected him. That gave me the strength to continue. The moment for the vows arrived. When Eli began to speak, his voice was firm and full of genuine emotion. "Ellie, from the day I met you, I knew you were the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I don't have material wealth to offer you, but I give you my whole heart, my eternal loyalty, and my promise to make you happy every day I have left." A few people in the audience sighed, moved. I had tears in my eyes, but then I heard Darius let out a loud, sarcastic laugh that echoed through the ballroom. "This is pathetic," my son said out loud without any shame. He stood up with his champagne glass in his hand, swaying slightly. He'd been drinking before the ceremony. "Seriously, Mom, this is the man you chose? This miserable old man?" The room fell into absolute silence. 400 people held their breath. The minister stopped speaking and looked at me with concern. Eli squeezed my hand harder, but his expression remained tranquil, almost compassionate. "Darius, please," I tried to say, but my voice came out broken, humiliated. "No, Mom, someone has to tell the truth here." Darius walked to the center aisle, gesturing dramatically. "You worked your whole life. You sacrificed for me. Dad left you a good inheritance, and this is what you do with it? Marry a nobody who probably just wants your money?" Tasha stood up too, a malicious smile on her lips. "Darius is right, Ellie. That's not a stepfather. That's trash you picked up off the street." Her whole family erupted in laughter. Her mother, father, uncles, cousins, all laughing, pointing, pulling out their cell phones to record the moment. It was like they were at a circus and we were the clowns. But then something inside me snapped. It wasn't sadness. It was fury. A burning rage that shot from my feet to my head. I pulled my hand from Eli's and walked straight toward my son. "You know what, Darius?" My voice sounded different, stronger, firmer than I had heard it in years. "You're right about one thing. Someone does have to tell the truth here." The silence in that room was so dense you could cut it with a knife. 400 people stared at me with wide eyes, waiting to see what humiliated Ellie would do. My son Darius wore that arrogant smirk, the same one he used as a child when he thought he had won an argument. Tasha stood beside him, arms crossed, with that look of superiority I hated so much. Her entire family continued to snicker, enjoying the spectacle as if it were the most entertaining thing they'd seen in years. "The truth," I repeated, feeling the weight of every word leaving my mouth, "is that I spent 35 years of my life married to your father. 35 years where I worked 12-hour days cleaning other people's homes so you could go to the best schools. 35 years where I broke my back, wrecked my hands, and sacrificed my health and youth to give you everything you needed." Darius blinked, and for a second I saw a flicker of discomfort in his eyes, but he quickly covered it up by taking another sip of his champagne. "Your father was a good man," I continued, feeling tears beginning to well up, but refusing to let them fall. "But when he died 15 years ago, he left me alone. Completely alone. Do you know how many times I came to your house asking to spend time with me? How many times I called you crying because the loneliness was killing me?" "Mom, don't make a scene," Darius said, but his voice sounded less sure now. "A scene?" I laughed, but it was a bitter, painful laugh. "A scene is being alone every Christmas because you were too busy with Tasha's family. A scene is spending my 61st, 60th, 59th birthdays completely by myself because you couldn't even be bothered to send a text." Some people in the audience began to murmur. I could see looks of disapproval aimed at my son. But Tasha wasn't going to stay quiet. "Oh, please," she spat, stepping forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Always the victim, aren't you, Ellie? Always complaining, always needing attention. You know what? Darius has his own life. He can't be babysitting you like you're a child." "Babysitting me?" I whispered, feeling something inside me begin to shatter. I didn't ask to be babysat. I just asked for a little love, a little respect, a little of the affection I gave him his whole life. Eli was still standing by the altar, watching the scene with a serene but alert expression. He didn't intervene. He didn't stop me. He was simply there, giving me the space to say what I had held inside for so many years. "And now," my voice trembled but remained strong, "now that I've finally found someone who makes me feel alive again, someone who treats me with dignity and respect, you come here to destroy it? You, my own son, come here to humiliate me in front of everyone? Because that man is a gold digger," Darius yelled, pointing at Eli with contempt. "Look at him. Look closely. He dresses like a bum. He lives in a dumpy apartment. He probably doesn't even have a bank account, and I'm supposed to be happy my mother is marrying that?" Tasha's family clapped and shouted in support. "Exactly," yelled Tasha's father, Larry Jenkins, a heavy man whose greasy mustache seemed to hang over his cheap cigar smell. "That miserable old man just wants your mother's money. It's obvious. You should be grateful Darius is worried about you." Tasha's mother, Brenda, added, shaking her multiple gold bracelets ostentatiously. He's just protecting your assets. My assets? The words left my mouth like venom. Since when did you care about my assets, Darius? Since when did you care about anything other than your own benefit? That's not fair, he protested, his face turning red. Not fair? Let me tell you what's not fair. It wasn't fair that when I needed $1,000 for surgery 3 years ago, you told me you had no money, but 2 weeks later, you bought that Rolex you're wearing. It wasn't fair that when I asked to borrow $5,000 to repair my house, you made me sign a document with interest, as if I were a stranger. It isn't fair that every time I asked for help, you treated me like a bother, like a burden. The murmurs in the audience grew louder. I could see some people nodding their heads, others looking at Darius with critical eyes. My friends, the few I had invited, had tears in their eyes. Vivian Lewis, my best friend for 30 years, was openly crying. But Tasha wasn't finished. That woman never knew when to shut up. You know what's really going on here, Ellie, she said, walking toward me with that superior attitude that made my blood boil. You're desperate. You're old, you're alone, and you grabbed the first man who paid you any attention. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing. And frankly, my whole family is here as witnesses to the worst decision you've ever made. Her family roared in approval. The cousins, the uncles, even the friends they had brought, all laughing, all mocking. Some were recording with their phones, capturing every second of my humiliation to share later on social media. I could imagine the captions, "Crazy old lady marries a beggar," or "The most pathetic wedding of the year." I felt something inside me finally break. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't pain, it was determination, a strength I didn't know I possessed. I turned and walked to Eli, who was still standing by the altar with that inexplicable calm. I took his hand and looked him in the eyes. "Are you sure you want to marry me?" I asked in a low voice. "Because my family is a mess, and they clearly don't deserve to be here." Eli smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something in it, something I couldn't quite decipher. "Ellie, my love, I've never been surer of anything in my life, and you are right. There are people here who don't deserve to witness this moment." I turned back to the 400 guests. Most of them were good people, true friends, colleagues, neighbors who cared about me. But there was a specific group that had turned the most important day of my life into a nightmare. "Darius," I said, and my voice resonated through the room with an authority I had never used with my son. "You, Tasha, and your entire family, out of my wedding, out of my life." The silence that followed was deafening. Darius stared at me as if I had slapped him. "What?" he stammered. "Mom, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious in my life. I want you to leave now." Tasha let out a hysterical laugh. "You're throwing us out? Your own family?" "Not my family," I replied coldly. "You and your parasites, yes. You have 5 minutes to leave this room, or I'll call security." Darius looked at me as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. His face went from shock to indignation in seconds. "You're throwing me out of your wedding? Your only son?" "Yes," I replied without hesitating for a second. "I'm throwing out you, your wife, and all those vipers you brought with you." Tasha stepped forward, her index finger pointing at me menacingly. Her black nails looked like claws ready to strike. "You can't do this, you stupid old woman. You have no right." "I have every right in the world. This is my wedding. I paid every cent for this event. I hired this venue. I paid for the food. I hired the musicians, and I have every right to decide who stays and who goes. And you are definitely going." Tasha's father, Larry, got up from his seat, his belly hanging over his belt. "Who do you think you are talking to us like that? My family has influence in this city. We can ruin you." "Ruin me then," I said, feeling a boldness I didn't know existed inside me. "You've already ruined the most important day of my life. What more can you do to me?" Tasha's mother, Brenda, also stood up, making all her gold bracelets clank scandalously. "This is an insult, a total lack of respect. We came all the way here to support this ridiculous marriage, and this is how you repay us?" "Support?" I laughed bitterly. "You call mocking my husband, calling him trash, and humiliating him in front of everyone support? That's not support. That's pure cruelty." One of Tasha's cousins, a young guy with too much hair gel, shouted from his table, "Your husband is trash! We all know it. Just look at him. He looks like a bum you picked up off the street." Several members of their family laughed and applauded. They were enjoying this. They were truly enjoying tearing me down on my own special day. Eli finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost gentle. But there was a tone of firmness I had never heard from him before. "Young man, you don't know me. You know nothing about me, and yet you feel entitled to insult me. What does that say about you?" The cousin immediately fell silent, as if something in Eli's voice had disarmed him. But Darius wasn't going to give up so easily. He approached me. His breath smelled of alcohol, and his face was red with fury. "Mom, if you throw us out now, if you do this, you'll never see me again. You'll never see your grandkids again, I swear to God." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. My grandchildren, Miles, 6 years old, and Chloe, 4. I love them with all my heart. The thought of never seeing them again was devastating. But then I looked at Eli. I looked at this man who had treated me with more respect and dignity in 6 months of dating than my own son had in the last 15 years, and I knew I had to choose. I had to choose my own happiness for once in my life. "If that is your decision, Darius," I said, and my voice cracked a little, but I didn't stop, "then so be it. I will not let you manipulate me anymore. I will not let you use me as your personal bank while treating me like trash when you don't need me." "You're selfish," Tasha screamed. "A selfish old woman who is choosing a stranger over her own family." "He's not a stranger," I replied calmly. "He's the man I love. And if you can't respect that, then you don't have a place in my life." Darius looked at me with so much hatred that it almost made me step back. "You're going to regret this. When that old man robs you of everything you have, when he leaves you with nothing, don't come crying to my door for help." "Don't worry," I said, feeling the tears finally start to roll down my cheeks. "I won't." The atmosphere in the ballroom was one of absolute tension. The other guests watched the scene with a mix of horror and fascination. Some of my friends seemed to want to intervene, but they stood still, unsure what to do. Vivian Lewis, my best friend, finally stood up. She was a 63-year-old woman with short white hair and a strong personality I had always admired. "Darius, Tasha, if you have any decency, you will leave right now and let Ellie be. What you are doing is cruel and unforgivable." "You shut up, you nosy old woman," Tasha snapped. "This isn't your problem." "It is my problem when I see my best friend being abused by her own family," Vivian replied firmly. "And honestly, after seeing how you behave, I perfectly understand why Ellie prefers to marry Elias. He has more class in his little finger than all of you combined." That further enraged Tasha's family. They started shouting all at once, creating absolute chaos. Insults flew through the air. Some people started getting up from their seats. The ballroom that, half an hour ago, was a place of elegance and celebration, now looked like a battleground. "Enough!" I shouted with all the strength in my lungs. My voice echoed through the space, silencing everyone instantly. "I will call security right now if you don't leave voluntarily." I gestured to the venue manager, a tall professional man who had been watching everything from the entrance. He nodded and started walking toward us with 2 security guards. "We don't need you to kick us out," Darius said with disdain. "We are leaving of our own free will. This place stinks anyway. And you," he pointed his finger at me, "you disgust me. I hope you are happy with your decision, because you will never have your family again." "Real family doesn't treat you like this," I replied, and I felt Eli move closer and take my hand, giving me strength. Tasha grabbed her designer bag, the same one I had helped her buy last year when she borrowed $3,000 she never paid back. "Let's get out of here. This wedding is a bad joke anyway." One by one, Tasha's entire family started getting up from their seats. There were about 20 people in total. They gathered their belongings with exaggerated movements, making as much noise as possible, making sure their exit was as dramatic as their behavior throughout the ceremony. "This is not over," Tasha's father yelled as he walked toward the exit. "Everyone in the city will know what kind of woman you are." "Let them know," I said with a calm that surprised me. "I don't care what they think anymore." As the procession of toxic people left the room, some even pushing chairs and throwing napkins on the floor as a final act of rebellion, the rest of the guests remained in absolute silence. It was as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Darius was the last to leave. He stopped at the door, looked at me one last time, and said, "Goodbye, Mom. I hope your new life with that loser is worth losing your only son." And he left. The door closed behind him with a final sound that resonated in my heart like a definitive slam. I stood there in the middle of the ballroom trembling. I had just kicked my son out of my wedding. I had just potentially broken my relationship with him forever. I had just lost access to my grandchildren, the only innocent creatures in this whole horrible situation. Tears fell freely down my face. My makeup was ruined. My champagne-colored dress had tear stains. The happiest day of my life had turned into an absolute nightmare. Then I felt Eli's arms wrap around me. He hugged me with such tenderness, with such strength, that for a moment I felt everything would be all right. "I am so sorry, sweetheart," I whispered against his chest. "I ruined everything. I ruined our wedding." "You didn't ruin anything," he said softly, stroking my hair. "You did the right thing, the brave thing, and I'm very proud of you." We stayed like that for a moment, embraced in the middle of the chaos that remained. The other guests slowly began to applaud, first Vivian, then other friends, until the whole room was clapping. It wasn't applause for celebration, it was applause for support, for solidarity. Eli gently separated from me and took my hands. He looked me in the eyes with an intensity I had never seen before. "Ellie, my love, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" I asked, wiping my tears. He took a deep breath, as if he were about to reveal something momentous. "I'm not who you think I am." My heart stopped for a second. What did that mean? After everything that had just happened, now he had a secret too? "Eli, what are you saying?" My voice trembled. He smiled, but it was a strange smile, sad and happy at the same time. "Honey, I'm a billionaire." I stared at him as if he had spoken in a foreign language. The words had come out of his mouth, they had reached my ears, but my brain refused to process them. "What did you say?" "I am a billionaire, Ellie," Eli repeated with absolute calm. "I have over $2 billion in assets, properties in a dozen countries, companies, investments, everything." I felt my legs begin to fail. Vivian rushed toward me and held my arm. "Ellie, breathe, breathe, friend." But I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. Everything that had happened in the last hour, the humiliation, the pain, kicking out my own son, and now this. I don't understand. I don't understand anything. You live in a small apartment. You drive an old car, your clothes. "It's all a conscious choice," Eli said, and his voice was so gentle that it made me want to cry again. After my first wife passed away 8 years ago, after seeing how everyone around me only wanted my money, I decided to live simply. I wanted to find someone who would love me for who I am, not for what I have. The room was in complete silence. Everyone listened to every word with absolute attention. This was more dramatic than any soap opera they had ever seen. "That's why you wear those clothes?" I whispered, beginning to understand. "That's why you live in that place? That's why you never let me pay when we went out?" "Exactly," he nodded, and I found exactly what I was looking for. I found you, Ellie, a genuine, kind-hearted woman who treated me with respect and affection, even when you thought I had nothing to offer except my love. Tears returned to my eyes, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of pain or humiliation. They were tears of something I couldn't yet name. "Why are you telling me now? Why here, after all this?" Eli looked toward the door where Darius and Tasha had left minutes before. "Because I wanted you to see who they really are. I wanted you to see their true character when they thought I was nothing, and I wanted you to make your own decision about them before knowing the truth about me." "My God," I whispered, covering my face with my hands. My son just insulted and humiliated a billionaire." "Your son just insulted and humiliated the man you love," Eli gently corrected. "The money shouldn't change that." He was right. He was completely right, but my mind was still spinning, processing this impossible information. $2 billion. How? Where from? Eli smiled, and for the first time, I saw a flash of pride in his eyes. I started with nothing, just like you. I worked construction for 20 years. I saved every penny. I invested in real estate when no one else would. I bought properties everyone said were worthless. I built an empire brick by brick. But when my wife, my beloved Letitia, died of cancer, all that money meant nothing. I couldn't save her. I couldn't make her stay with me for one more day. His voice cracked at the end, and I saw the genuine pain in his eyes. This man had suffered, had loved, and lost, just like me. After her death, he continued, everyone around me changed. My friends only called when they needed money. The women who pursued me only saw dollars. My own in-laws tried to sue me for the inheritance. I realized that money had poisoned all my relationships, so I decided to disappear from the radar. I maintained my businesses, but I completely changed my lifestyle. Vivian was still by my side, supporting me, but even she was slack-jawed, listening to this story. Meeting you, Ellie. Eli took my hands in his. It was like coming back to life. You treated me with dignity. You listened to me when I spoke. You laughed at my bad jokes. You cooked me your home-cooked meals. You invited me into your house without caring that my clothes were old or my car was rusty. You loved me for who I am. I don't know what to say, I stammered. My world had been completely turned upside down in less than 2 hours. You don't have to say anything right now, he said, tenderly caressing my cheek. I know it's a lot to process. I know all this is overwhelming, but I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know that you made the right decision, that defending our love, defending our relationship was worth it. Suddenly, everything began to click into place in my mind like puzzle pieces. The small details I had noticed but never questioned. The way Eli always seemed so sure of himself. The way he spoke about business with deep knowledge. The times he had casually mentioned traveling the world. His education, his vocabulary, his mannerisms. It all made sense. Did anyone else know? I asked. Did anyone know the truth about you? My lawyer, Marcus King, Eli replied. He's here today in row 12. He's been managing my affairs for the last 8 years. I asked him to come to our wedding as a witness. I looked toward row 12 and saw a distinguished man in his 50s, wearing a clearly expensive suit, nodding his head as our eyes met. He looked like someone important. How had I not noticed him before? And what happens now? I asked, feeling completely lost. What does all this mean for us? Eli smiled with the same love I had seen in his eyes from the first day we met. It means that now we can start our life together without secrets. It means I can give you everything you deserve. It means you'll never have to worry about money, security, or anything ever again. But more important than all that, he squeezed my hands harder. It means I found someone who truly loves me, and that is worth more than all the millions in the world. Tears streamed down my face freely. Now I couldn't control them. It was all too much. The emotion, the shock, the revelation, everything mixed in a whirlwind of feelings I couldn't process. Vivian hugged me tightly. Girl, I always told you this man was special. I always knew it. Other guests began to approach, offering words of support and congratulation. But I remained in a state of shock, trying to process this new reality. There's something else you should know, Eli said softly. The $5,000 your son Darius lent you with interest? I already paid it off without you knowing. I deposited the full amount into his account 3 months ago. What? My voice came out as a shriek. I didn't want you to have that debt hanging over your shoulders, but I asked Mark to do it anonymously. I wanted to see if Darius would mention it to you, if he would give you the money back, or if he would tell you the debt was settled. He never said anything to you, did he? I shook my head slowly, feeling a new wave of betrayal hit me. He never said a word. In fact, 2 weeks ago he called me asking when I was going to pay him. Eli sighed sadly. I figured. That's why I needed you to see his true character before we got married. I needed you to know exactly who you were dealing with. Then everything made sense. The test. It had all been a test not for me, but to reveal the true nature of the people around me, and they had all failed spectacularly. My son, I whispered, feeling my heart break again. My own son was scamming me. I am so sorry, sweetheart, Eli said, hugging me. I know it hurts. I know it's devastating, but it was better for you to know now than to continue living in ignorance. He was right. Of course he was right. But that didn't make it hurt any less. My only child, the baby I had carried in my womb for 9 months, the boy I had raised with so much love and sacrifice, had been robbing me, lying to me, using me, and today at my wedding, he had shown his true face. What do we do now? I asked, feeling completely exhausted. Eli looked me in the eyes with determination. Now we continue with our wedding. Now we get married, surrounded by the people who truly love and support us. And after that, we start our new life together. The minister, who had remained silent throughout the drama, approached us with an expression of genuine compassion. He was an elderly man, about 70 years old, with decades of experience officiating weddings, but even for him, this had been extraordinary. "Do you wish to continue with the ceremony?" he asked softly. I looked at Eli. I looked at the room full of people who had witnessed my humiliation and my defense. I looked at Vivian, who was smiling at me through her tears. And I knew the answer. "Yes," I said firmly. "Yes, we want to continue." The next few minutes were a whirlwind of emotion. The minister resumed the ceremony where we had left off. This time, there were no interruptions, no cruel laughter, no hurtful comments. There was only love, support, and a completely different energy in the atmosphere. When Eli placed the ring on my finger, I felt as if I were starting a completely new life. And when he declared us husband and wife, the room erupted in genuine, heartfelt applause. I kissed my husband, and in that moment, all the pain of the last few hours momentarily vanished. I was happy. I was married to the love of my life, and nothing else mattered at that instant. The reception was beautiful. Without the toxic presence of Darius, Tasha, and their family, the atmosphere completely transformed. People danced, laughed, and celebrated with genuine joy. My friends constantly approached me to congratulate me and tell me how brave I had been. Some even admitted they had always thought Darius treated me badly, but had never dared to say so. During dinner, Eli stood up and asked for everyone's attention. The room fell silent. "I want to thank everyone who stayed today," his voice began, resonating with natural authority. "You have been witnesses to something very difficult, but also something very important. You have seen an incredible woman defend her dignity and her right to be happy. And I want you to know that I am honored to be her husband." Applause filled the room. Eli continued, "I also want to clarify something. Some of you heard my confession a while ago, and I know many of you have questions, so let me be completely transparent. I am the founder and owner of Vance Development Group, VDG, one of the largest real estate development firms in the Southeast." There was a collective gasp. Vance Development Group was legendary. They had built some of the most iconic high-rises in the region, luxury hotels, commercial centers, residential complexes. I myself had cleaned floors in some of those buildings when I worked in janitorial services. "The reason I never mentioned it," Eli continued, "is because after losing my first wife, I realized that money attracted the wrong kind of people. I wanted to find true love, not self-interest, and I found it in Ellie. This woman loved me when she thought I was a simple retired laborer. She gave me her heart without expecting anything in return, and that, my friends, is priceless." He took my hand and raised me so I stood beside him. "So now, I want to promise her, in front of all of you, that I will dedicate the rest of my life to making her happy, to giving her everything she deserves, and to protecting her from anyone who tries to harm her." The ovation was deafening. Vivian was openly weeping. Other friends hugged each other, moved. It was as if everyone shared my happiness in a deep, genuine way. But in the midst of all that joy, my mind kept returning to one image, Darius's face as he left the room, the rage, the contempt, the absolute certainty that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. And I wondered what he was thinking now. Had he heard the rumors about who Eli really was? Did he know he had insulted and humiliated a billionaire? As if Eli could read my thoughts, he leaned toward me during the dance and whispered, "I know you're thinking about him. It's normal. He's your son." "I can't help it," I admitted. "Despite everything he did, he's still my son, and it hurts. It hurts so much." "I know, sweetheart, and I don't expect that to change overnight, but I want you to know something. The fact that he's your son doesn't give him the right to abuse you. Family love shouldn't include abuse, manipulation, or humiliation." He was right. I knew it in my heart, but a mother's heart is complicated. You can know your child has hurt you deeply and still love them. You can recognize their toxicity and still miss them. It's a painful contradiction only mothers fully understand. The party continued into the late hours of the night. We danced, ate cake, and toasted with champagne that cost more than I used to earn in a month cleaning houses. It was all surreal. This morning, I had woken up as Ellie, the 61-year-old woman who had worked hard all her life to survive. Now, I was going to sleep as Ellie Vance, the wife of a billionaire. When we finally retired to the bridal suite Eli had reserved at the city's most luxurious hotel, I felt overwhelmed by everything. The room was larger than my entire apartment. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire illuminated city, a massive bed with sheets that probably cost thousands of dollars, and a marble bathroom with a tub that looked like a small pool. "Are you all right?" Eli asked, taking off his jacket. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my champagne-colored dress. "Honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a dream, or maybe a nightmare, or both at the same time." Eli sat beside me and took my hand. "I know it's a lot to process. Everything changed in a matter of hours, but I want you to know something very important, Ellie. Nothing between us has changed. I'm still the same man you met 6 months ago. The same man who fell in love with your laugh, your kindness, your strength. Money is just money. It doesn't define who I am." "But it changes everything," I whispered. "It changes absolutely everything." "It doesn't have to," he insisted. "We can continue to live simply if that's what you want. Or we can enjoy some comforts. You decide. This is our life now, our decision." I looked into his eyes and saw the same tenderness I had always seen, the same gentleness, the same love. And I realized he was right. The money hadn't changed him. He was still Eli, my Eli. "I want to ask you something," I said after a moment of silence. "Why me? Of all the women you could have chosen, why did you choose a 61-year-old widow with a problematic son and a complicated life?" Eli smiled, and it was that smile that made my heart melt. "Do you remember the day we met?" I nodded. It had been at the local farmer's market. I was buying vegetables, trying to find the cheapest ones. He was in the same aisle, and our carts had accidentally bumped. "You apologized about 5 times, Eli recalled with a smile. "And then, when you saw a tomato had fallen out of my cart and rolled under a shelf, you knelt down to pick it up. You knelt down on your bad knee that always bothers you just to retrieve my tomato. And when I handed it back to me and I thanked you, you smiled at me with such warmth, such genuine kindness, that I knew in that moment you were special." I didn't remember that detail about the tomato. It had been such a small, insignificant gesture. "Afterward," he continued, "we started running into each other regularly at the market, always on Thursday mornings. And every time I saw you, I learned something new about you. Your patience with the vendors, your generosity toward the children selling sweets on the street, the way you greeted everyone with respect, no matter who they were. I saw your soul, Ellie, and I fell in love with it." Tears started falling down my cheeks again. It seemed I hadn't stopped crying all day. "So, yes," Eli said, wiping my tears with his thumbs. "Of all the women I could have chosen, I chose you. Because you are real, because you are good, because you make me feel alive again." We kissed, and in that kiss was a promise of a future together, no matter what challenges came. But even in that perfect moment, in that luxurious room, with my new husband beside me, a part of me couldn't stop thinking about Darius, how he would react when he learned the complete truth, whether we could ever repair our relationship, and whether I truly wanted to try after everything he had done. I woke up the next morning in that enormous bed, wrapped in sheets that felt like clouds. For a moment, I thought it had all been a dream, the wedding, the humiliation, Eli's revelation. But then I turned my head and saw him sleeping peacefully beside me, and I knew it was all real. Everything had happened. My life had changed forever in a matter of 24 hours. I got up carefully not to wake him and walked to the giant windows. The city stretched out below us, bathed in the golden light of dawn. From this height, everything seemed so small, so insignificant, and I wondered if that was how Eli saw the world from his position of power and wealth. "Good morning, my love," I heard his voice behind me. I turned and saw him sitting up in bed, his hair tousled, a gentle smile on his face. "Good morning," I replied, feeling a mixture of happiness and anxiety. I couldn't sleep anymore. "It's understandable. Yesterday was intense." He got up and walked toward me, wrapping me in a hug from behind. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," I admitted. "Darius, what happened? What comes next?" Eli kissed my head gently. "I have something to show you, something I think will help you better understand who I am and what our new life together means." Half an hour later, we were in a private helicopter. A helicopter. Never in my life had I imagined I would be flying in one. Eli handled the controls with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. "I learned to fly 20 years ago," he explained when he saw my surprised face. "It's useful for business, and it also gives me freedom." We flew over the city, and Eli began pointing out different buildings. "That hotel right there, the Grand Plaza, is mine. I built it 15 years ago. It has 400 rooms and is one of the most successful in the region." He pointed in another direction. "That shopping center, the Sun Promenade, is also mine. And those 3 apartment buildings over there, and that industrial complex near the port." With every building he pointed out, my disbelief grew. He wasn't just rich. He owned significant parts of the city where I had lived my entire life. I had cleaned floors in some of those buildings without ever knowing who their true owner was. "See that hospital?" He pointed toward a modern building with a red cross on the roof. "I donated it 5 years ago. My wife, Letitia, died of cancer, and the public health system didn't have the necessary resources. So I built an entire hospital dedicated to free oncological treatment for low-income people." That information hit me like a punch. "Free?" "Completely free," he confirmed. "No one should die because they can't afford their treatment. Letitia had access to the best doctors in the world, and still we couldn't save her, but at least I can help others who don't even have that opportunity." I started seeing Eli in a completely different light. He wasn't just a rich man. He was a man who used his wealth to do good, to help others, to build something meaningful. "I also have foundations," he continued, as we landed on the rooftop of an impressive building, the headquarters of Vance Development Group. One for educational scholarships, another for social housing, and one for entrepreneurs who need seed capital but can't access bank loans. We got off the helicopter and entered the building. The offices were elegant but not ostentatious. Employees were working in bright, open spaces. Everyone greeted Eli with genuine respect, not the servile fear I had seen in other places where bosses were dreaded. "I want to introduce you to someone," Eli said, guiding me toward a large office on the top floor. Inside was Marcus King, the lawyer he had mentioned at the wedding. He was a distinguished man in his 50s with silver hair and an imposing presence. "Mrs. Hayes," he greeted me with a slight bow. "It is an honor to finally meet you properly. Eli has spoken a lot about you over the last 6 months." "Really?" I asked, surprised. "Of course," Mark smiled. "He constantly told me he had found someone special, someone genuine. And after what I witnessed at the wedding yesterday, I can confirm he was right." Eli gestured for us to sit down. "Mark, show Ellie the documents we prepared." Mark opened a leather folder and pulled out several papers. "Mrs. Hayes, your husband has prepared some important documents. First, he has added your name to all his main bank accounts. You have complete access to all his funds." My mouth dropped open. "What? No, I can't accept that. We just got married yesterday." "You are my wife," Eli said firmly. "What's mine is yours. It's that simple." "In addition," Mark continued, "he has transferred the title of 3 properties into your name, a beach house, a city apartment, and a mountain retreat. He has also established an investment fund in your name with an initial value of $50 million. I felt dizzy. $50 million for me? A woman who had spent most of her life worrying about how to pay the rent each month. Eli, this is too much, I protested. I can't. Yes, you can, he interrupted gently. And there's more. I've also established trust funds for your grandchildren. Miles and Chloe will each have $10 million available when they turn 25, specifically for their education, starting a business, or whatever they choose to do with their lives. Tears began to fall down my face. My grandchildren. Despite everything Darius had done, Eli was thinking about my grandchildren's future. Why? Was all I could say. Because they are innocent, Eli replied. Because they are not to blame for their parents' actions, and because they are your blood, Ellie. They are important to you, so they are important to me. Mark continued explaining more details. Life insurance policies, diversified investments, commercial properties. The amount of money was so astronomical that my brain simply couldn't process it. Also, Eli said after Mark finished, I want you to know that you have total freedom about how you want to live your life. If you want to continue living simply, we can do that. If you want to travel the world, we'll do it. If you want to dedicate yourself to charitable causes, I will support you completely. This is your life now, Ellie. You decide how you want to live it. We spent the rest of the day touring his company's facilities. I met managers, architects, and engineers. Everyone spoke of Eli with genuine admiration. He wasn't just a boss, he was a leader who cared about his people. He had created training programs, generous benefits, and opportunities for real growth. My philosophy has always been simple, he explained as we ate at an exclusive restaurant on the top floor of the building. If you take care of your people take care of your business. Many of my employees have been with me for more than 20 years. I've watched them grow, start families, achieve their dreams, and that makes me happier than any amount of money. By the afternoon when we returned to the hotel suite, I felt completely overwhelmed. I had seen and learned so much in a single day. My perspective on everything had drastically changed. How are you processing all this? Eli asked as we sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. Honestly, I don't know, I admitted. Part of me still feels like I'm going to wake up, and it will all be a dream. Another part of me feels guilty. Guilty? Why? Because while I was struggling to survive, cleaning floors in buildings that were yours, you had all this power, all this wealth. It feels, disproportionate. Eli nodded thoughtfully. I understand that feeling. Inequality in the world is brutal and unfair. That's why I do what I do, the foundations, the hospital, the housing programs. I try to use my privilege to create opportunities for others. But you're right, it will never be enough. I can never fully compensate for the injustice of the system. And Darius? I asked, finally voicing the question that had been circling in my mind all day. What about him? Eli sighed. Mark has been monitoring the situation. Apparently, your son and Tasha are having some serious financial problems. They've been living beyond their means for years. They have massive debts. And now, after what happened yesterday, some of his business partners are distancing themselves from them. How do you know all that? I asked, surprised. Because I asked for an investigation, Eli admitted. Not to harm them, but to understand the complete situation. And what we discovered is worrying, Ellie. Your son is on the verge of bankruptcy. He owes money to a lot of dangerous people. I felt my stomach clench. How bad is the situation? Very bad. He owes close to $2 million between bank loans, credit cards, and failed investments. And some of his creditors are not exactly patient or legal. My heart sank. Despite everything Darius had done to me, he was still my son. The thought of him being in danger terrified me. $2 million? I repeated, feeling panic begin to set in. How is it possible for him to owe that much money? Eli took my hand. According to Mark's investigation, Darius invested in several fraudulent businesses. He bought shares in shell companies. He borrowed money at loan shark rates to maintain his lavish lifestyle, and Tasha didn't help. She spends as if money were unlimited, designer bags, jewelry, trips to Europe, all on credit cards that are already maxed out. I covered my face with my hands. My God, and here I am with access to millions while my son is sinking in debt. Ellie, look at me. Eli gently lifted my chin so our eyes met. Your son publicly humiliated you, called you horrible things, ruined the most important day of your life, and he did it when he thought I had nothing to offer you. Do you truly believe he deserves your compassion after that? He's my son, I whispered, tears starting to fall again. I know he treated me horribly. I know he was cruel, but he's still my son, Eli. I can't just turn off those feelings. Eli nodded with understanding. I know, and I'm not asking you to, but you need to understand something. If you give him money now, if you bail Darius out of this situation, he will never learn. He will never face the consequences of his actions, and most importantly, he will never truly value your sacrifice. But you said some of his creditors are dangerous. What if they hurt him? What if they hurt Tasha, or worse, my grandchildren? The children are safe, Eli assured me. Mark has already taken care of that. We hired discreet security to watch over them. No one will touch Miles or Chloe. I promise you. That information gave me some relief, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't disappear. And Darius? Are you watching him too? Yes, and this is where things get interesting. Eli leaned back in his chair. His expression became more serious. 3 days ago, Darius found out who I really am. A business partner of his showed him a Forbes article featuring me on the list of the richest men in the Southeast. My heart stopped. And what did he do? At first, he didn't believe it. He thought it was a coincidence of names, but then he looked up photos and recognized me. Since then, he has tried to contact me 12 times, calls, texts, emails, all through my company's official channels. And what did you do? Nothing. I ignored every attempt, but Mark saved all the messages. Do you want to hear what he said? I wasn't sure I wanted to know, but I nodded anyway. Eli pulled out his phone and started reading. First message. Mr. Elias Vance, I sincerely regret the misunderstanding at the wedding. I was unaware of who you were. Please allow me to explain. He paused and looked at me. Notice how he says he regrets the misunderstanding, not his actions, as if the problem was simply that he didn't know I was rich. He continued reading. Second message. Mr. Vance, this is Darius, Ellie's son. I urgently need to speak with you about a business matter. I have a proposal that could be mutually beneficial. Eli let out a bitter laugh. He doesn't even mention his mother. He goes straight to asking for business favors. Third message. He kept reading. This one was sent yesterday evening. Mr. Vance, I am going through a complicated financial situation. As your wife's son, I hoped we could speak as family. I am sure we can reach an agreement that benefits everyone, especially Mom. I felt nauseated. He's using my name to manipulate you. Exactly. And there's more. Message number 7. Mr. Vance, I know I made mistakes at the wedding. I was drunk and wasn't thinking clearly. But I am Ellie's only son. The grandchildren she adores are my children. Do you really want to break that family relationship? I can make her happy if you help me resolve my current problems. That's emotional blackmail, I said, feeling rage begin to replace worry. Absolutely. And the most recent message, sent this morning. Elias, I need $500,000 by the end of the week, or I will be in serious trouble. As my mother's husband, you have a moral obligation to help her family. I promise to pay it all back with interest. I trust in your understanding. I remained silent for a long moment, processing everything I had just heard. My son hadn't called to apologize to me. He hadn't tried to repair our relationship. He hadn't shown an ounce of genuine repentance. He only wanted money. He was only trying to use my marriage to solve his own financial problems. What are you planning to do? I finally asked. The question is, what do you want me to do? Eli replied, You are his mother. You are my wife. This decision affects you as much as it affects me. I stood up and walked to the edge of the balcony, looking at the city stretching out below us. Somewhere down there, my son was desperate, scared, probably planning his next move. Part of me, that maternal part that never disappears, no matter how much you're hurt, wanted to rush and save him. I wanted to give him the money and solve all his problems. But another part of me, the part that had been humiliated in front of 400 people, the part that had been used and manipulated for years, the part that had finally found the strength to defend her dignity, knew that would be a mistake. "Don't give him the money," I said finally, my voice firmer than I expected. "Not yet, not like this." Eli approached me and hugged me from behind. "Are you sure?" "No," I admitted. "But I know it's the right thing to do. If we bail him out now, without real consequences for his actions, we will only be enabling his behavior. He needs to hit rock bottom. He needs to understand that he can't treat people like that and get away with it." "It's a brave decision," Eli said, kissing my head. "It's a painful decision," I corrected, "but a necessary one." The following days were an emotional roller coaster. Eli and I went on our honeymoon to a private island in the Caribbean, which of course he owned. It was a paradise with white sand beaches, crystal clear water, and absolute privacy. I tried to relax, to enjoy this time with my new husband, but my mind kept returning to Darius. Mark kept us informed of the situation. Darius's creditors were starting to apply pressure. They had repossessed his luxury car, they had frozen his bank accounts, the house where he lived with Tasha and the children was in foreclosure. "And Tasha?" I asked during one of the video call updates. "She left Darius 2 days ago," Mark informed us in his usual professional tone. "She moved in with her parents and took the children. She filed for divorce yesterday morning." I felt a pang of pain for Darius, despite everything. Being abandoned by your wife, losing your children, facing financial ruin, all at the same time. It was devastating. "And how is he?" I asked. "Not well," Mark admitted. "Our contacts say he's been drinking heavily, he's not eating properly. He has tried to contact several of his former friends and partners, but they have all turned their backs on him now that they know he's broke." "How convenient," I murmured bitterly. "There's something else," Mark continued. "Darius tried to sell his story to the media. He called several newspapers and television programs, offering an exclusive about how his mother married a billionaire and abandoned him in his time of need." "What?" I shrieked, feeling rage flood over me. "Don't worry," Eli took my hand. "Our public relations team already handled it. No reputable media outlet will touch that story, especially after we showed them the videos from the wedding where he publicly humiliates you." "There are videos?" I asked, surprised. "Of course. Several guests recorded the entire incident. And with your permission, we have strategically used them to protect your reputation. If Darius tries to paint you as the villain, we have clear evidence of who truly acted poorly." I sat in silence, absorbing all this information. My son had fallen so low that he was trying to sell me to the media. He was trying to use my happiness, my new life, as a way to make money and play the victim. "I think," I said slowly, "that I need to see him." Eli looked at me with concern. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "No, but I have to do it. I need to look him in the eyes and tell him exactly how I feel. I need that closure." 3 days later, I was standing in front of a run-down apartment building in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. It was an area I knew well. I had lived in similar places for years when Darius was little. The smell of dampness and garbage filled the air. The walls were covered in graffiti, and the stairs creaked dangerously under my feet as I climbed to the 3rd floor. Eli had insisted on accompanying me, but I asked him to wait in the car with the bodyguards, who were now apparently a permanent part of my life. This was something I needed to do alone. I knocked on the door of apartment number 32. I heard shuffling footsteps on the other side, and then the door slowly opened. What I saw broke my heart despite everything. Darius looked terrible. He had several days of beard growth and deep dark circles under his eyes. His clothes were wrinkled and stained. The apartment behind him was tiny and messy, with empty alcohol bottles scattered everywhere. This wasn't the arrogant, well-dressed man who had humiliated me at my wedding. This was a broken man. "Mom!" His voice came out as a broken whisper, his eyes immediately filled with tears. "Mom, you came." "I came," I said, keeping my distance in the doorway. "I wasn't going in. I wasn't going to make things easy for him. Please come in. I know the place is horrible, but—" He began, but I interrupted him. "I'm not coming in, Darius. I came to tell you a few things, and then I'm leaving." His face fell. Mom, please, I need to talk to you. I need to explain. Everything has been a nightmare. Tasha left me. She took the kids. I lost everything. And what did you expect? My voice sounded harsher than I intended, but there was so much accumulated pain I couldn't hold it back. Did you expect that after publicly humiliating me? After calling my husband trash? After trying to ruin the most important day of my life? Everything would just stay the same? I was drunk. He tried to excuse himself. I didn't know what I was saying. If I had known who Eli really was... There it is, I interrupted, feeling the rage surge in my chest. There's the truth. If you had known Eli was a billionaire, you would have treated me differently. If you had known he had money, you would have respected him. But because you thought he was poor, that he was worthless, you felt you had the right to treat us like trash. No, Mom, it's not like that, he stammered. But we both knew it was exactly like that. Yes, it is, Darius, and that tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. You didn't love me. You didn't respect my happiness. You only cared about the money. You only cared about how my marriage affected you. Please. His tears were falling freely now. Please, Mom, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I was jealous. I was scared of losing you, and I reacted in the worst way possible. Jealous? I repeated with disbelief. You left me alone for 15 years, and you were jealous? You ignored my calls, my pleas to spend time together. You treated me like a personal bank, and you were jealous? You're right, I was selfish. You're completely right. I was a horrible son, the worst son anyone could have. But I'm paying for it now. I'm losing everything. I've already lost everything, and the only thing I have left is you, Mom. You are the only thing I have left in this world. You lost me too, I said, and the words came out with a deep pain that pierced my chest. You lost me the day you decided your pride and your materialism were more important than your mother. No, he whimpered, falling to his knees. Don't say that. Please don't say that. I'll do anything to fix it. Anything. Anything? I asked, crossing my arms. Then why were all your messages to Eli asking for money? Why wasn't a single one of those messages a sincere apology to me? Why did you try to sell our story to the media? His face turned pale. How do you know about that? I know everything, Darius. I know about your debts. I know about the loan sharks. I know Tasha left you. I know you tried to use my marriage to get out of your problems. I know everything. He remained silent, still on his knees on the dirty floor of that miserable apartment. I'm desperate, Mom. I need $500,000 by Friday. Or very bad people are going to hurt me. People who don't play. They've already threatened me twice. And you came to me, I said with a calm I didn't feel, not because you love me, not because you value our relationship, but because you need money. No, it's not just about the money. I miss you, Mom. I miss having you in my life. I miss what, Darius? Miss having someone you could manipulate? Miss having a personal bank who never said no? Miss having someone who cleaned up your messes without complaining? I miss my mother, he whispered, and there was something genuine in his voice that almost made me waver. I miss how you took care of me when I was a kid, how you were always there for me, how you made me feel safe and loved. That boy doesn't exist anymore, I said, feeling tears start to sting my eyes. He turned into a man who values money more than people, a man who married a toxic woman and allowed her to poison our relationship, a man who used me for years and then humiliated me when I finally found happiness. I can change, he pleaded. Give me a chance, just one more chance, and I promise I'll be different. How many chances have I given you already, Darius? How many times did I lend you money you never returned? How many times did I forgive you for canceling our plans? How many times did I swallow my pain when you treated me like I was invisible? And what did you do with all those chances? He had no answer. He just stayed there on his knees, crying like a child. I'm going to tell you something, I continued, my voice trembling but firm. Eli wanted to help you. When he found out about your financial problems, his first instinct was to pay for everything. $500,000 is nothing to him. He could write that check right now and not even notice it in his bank account. Darius's eyes lit up with hope. He would really do that? He would, I confirmed. But I told him not to. The hope on his face turned to shock. What? Why? Because if I rescue you now, you will never learn. You will never understand the real value of things. You will never value people over money. You will continue to be the same superficial, materialistic man who treated me like trash. But Mom, they're going to hurt me. These men aren't playing. They've threatened to kill me. I know, I said, and my heart broke as I spoke the next words. And that terrifies me, because despite everything you've done to me, you're still my son, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you. But I also can't continue to be your eternal savior. I can't keep being the person who fixes all your problems while you never face the consequences of your actions. Then what am I supposed to do? He shouted, his voice full of despair. Just wait for them to kill me? You are going to do what any responsible adult would do, I replied. You are going to the police. You are going to report the loan sharks. You are going to ask for protection, and you are going to start rebuilding your life from scratch, the right way. The police can't do anything against these people. They're too powerful. They have too many connections. Then I'm going to give you something better than money, I said, pulling a business card from my purse. It was Mark King's. This is Eli's lawyer. He's one of the best in the country. Call him. He will handle your legal situation, protect you from the creditors, and help you file for bankruptcy in an orderly manner. Darius took the card with trembling hands. And after that, what? After I'm safe, will you come back into my life? That depends on you, I replied. It depends on whether you truly change, whether you learn from this, whether you can become the man I know you can be, the man I raised you to be. And my children, can I at least see them? Can they know their grandmother again? That question hit me hard. Miles and Chloe. I had missed them every day since the wedding. I will talk to Tasha, I promised, but she doesn't owe me anything. If she decides she doesn't want me to see the children for now, I'll have to respect that decision. She hates you, Darius said bitterly. She says all this is your fault, that if you hadn't married that old man, none of this would have happened. Of course she says that, I replied, unsurprised, because taking responsibility would mean admitting that her unsustainable lifestyle contributed to this situation. I turned to leave, but then Darius called out one last time. Mom, wait, just tell me one thing. Will you ever be able to forgive me? I stopped in the hallway and looked at him over my shoulder. I don't know, Darius. Honestly, I don't know. But I can tell you this. I want to be able to. I want to believe my son is still in there, underneath all that pride and materialism. So, prove it to me. Prove you're worth it. 6 months later, I was sitting on the terrace of our new home, a beautiful villa overlooking the ocean that Eli had designed specifically to my tastes. The sea breeze caressed my face as I sipped my morning coffee and watched the waves break against the private beach. It was a life I had never imagined for myself, and yet here I was, living it. My phone rang. It was Vivian, my friend. Ellie, turn on the news! Channel 7, quick! My heart pounding, I turned on the television. What I saw took my breath away. It was Darius, but not the broken man I had seen 6 months ago. He was in a simple but dignified suit, standing in front of a group of young people at what looked like a community center. 1 year ago, Darius was saying to the camera, I lost everything. I lost my house, my marriage, my money. But worst of all, I lost my dignity, and I almost lost my mother. Today, I'm here to tell these young people my story, not for them to pity me, but for them to learn from my mistakes. The reporter asked him questions about his downfall and recovery. Darius spoke openly about his debts, about how he had lived beyond his means, about how he had valued material things over the people he loved. My mother, he said, and his voice cracked slightly. She gave me the hardest but most important lesson of my life. She let me fall. She let me face the consequences of my actions, and at first I hated her for it. But now I understand it was the greatest act of love she could have ever given me. Eli appeared behind me and put a hand on my shoulder. Are you all right, sweetheart? I don't know, I whispered, unable to take my eyes off the screen. The report continued, showing how Darius had filed for bankruptcy with Mark's help, how he had found work at a construction company, starting from the bottom as an assistant. They showed his small but clean and orderly apartment. They showed how he now gave talks at schools and community centers about financial literacy and the consequences of materialism. "And his relationship with his mother?" the reporter asked. Darius looked down. "We are working on that slowly. She gave me her number 3 months ago, and we talk once a week. They are difficult conversations. There is a lot of pain to heal, but for the first time in years, I feel like we are being honest with each other." It was true. After he called Mark that day in his apartment, things had gradually begun to change. Mark had handled his legal situation brilliantly, reaching agreements with creditors and protecting Darius from any violence. The bankruptcy had been humiliating for him, but necessary. 2 months after our meeting, Darius had sent me a letter, not a text message, not an email, but a 10-page handwritten letter. In it, he detailed all his remorse, his arrogance, his materialism, how he had allowed Tasha to poison our relationship. But most importantly, he apologized. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't mention money. He just apologized deeply and sincerely. That letter made me cry for hours. Eli held me while I processed all those complicated feelings. I gave him my phone number a week later. Our first conversation was awkward, uncomfortable, full of long silences. But we continued. Every week, without fail, we talked for 30 minutes. "And his children?" the reporter continued on TV. "That's a process," Darius replied. "Tasha and I are in co-parenting therapy. It was something I suggested because I want my kids to have functional parents, even if we are no longer together." "Is there a message you would like to give to people going through similar situations?" Darius looked directly into the camera. "Yes. Pride will destroy you if you let it. Materialism will consume you, and the people who truly love you, the ones who are willing to let you fall so you can learn to fly, those are the ones you should value more than anything in the world. I also want to say something to my mother, if she's watching this." My heart stopped. "Mom," Darius said with tears in his eyes, "I know you're probably watching this. I want you to know that every day I am working on being the man you deserved as a son. Every day I try to be better. I don't expect you to forgive me tomorrow or next year or ever if you don't want to. But I want you to know that I understand now. I understand everything, and I love you. I have always loved you, even when I was too stupid and arrogant to show it." Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Eli hugged me tightly. The following month, I received another surprise. Mark called me to inform me that Darius had paid back the money he owed, the $5,000 Eli had paid for me. "He worked overtime for 4 months to gather the money," Mark explained. That night, I sent Darius a text message for the first time. Just 3 words. "I'm proud of you." His response came 20 minutes later. "That means more to me than any amount of money in the world." 2 weeks later, we met at a neutral coffee shop. It was awkward at first. There was so much to say and yet nothing to say. But slowly we began to talk. "Would you like to meet the children again?" I asked cautiously. Darius's eyes lit up. "You would really do that?" "They are my grandchildren," I said simply. I never stopped loving them. The reunion with Miles and Chloe was one of the most emotional experiences of my life. Eli was wonderful with them. He taught them to swim in our pool, told them stories, and showed them that wealth doesn't make you better than anyone else. One day, as we watched the children play on the beach, Darius said to me, "Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom." "Parents never give up on their children," I replied, "but sometimes we have to let them fall so they can learn to fly." Eli and I established a foundation in honor of his first wife, Letitia. The Letitia Foundation helped elderly women who had been abandoned by their families. It was my idea, born from my own experience. One evening, exactly 1 year after our wedding, Eli and I renewed our vows. This time, it was a small ceremony at our home, only with the people who truly mattered. Darius was there with Miles and Chloe. When it came time for the vows, Eli took my hands and said, "A year ago, I promised you eternal love without you knowing who I really was. Today, I promise it to you again, now that you know everything." After the ceremony, Darius approached Eli. "Mr. Vance, I never properly apologized. You are a good man, and my mother is lucky to have found you." Eli extended his hand. "The past is the past, Darius. What matters is the man you are today." That night, lying in Eli's arms, I reflected on everything that had happened. A year ago, I had been humiliated on the most important day of my life, and now I had found not only love and security, but also purpose, dignity, and a peace I had never known before. "What are you thinking about?" Eli asked. "I'm thinking that my whole life changed forever," I replied, "and that I wouldn't change anything that happened." "Why not?" "Because it led me exactly where I needed to be. It taught me who I really was. It gave me the strength to defend myself, and it brought me to you." Eli kissed my forehead. "You are the strongest woman I know, Ellie." "No," I gently corrected him. "I'm a woman who learned to be strong when she had no other choice, and that makes all the difference." "I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.